they used some of the Monty Walsh sets.
Really?
They're still up. And they used the town, actually. And it was great fun. A lot of fun to do because it had been a couple of years since I'd done a Western by that time. And it was nice to be back in the smell of the cowboys.
Yes, yes. Hi, I'm Rob Word. Welcome once again to A Word on Westerns. I know you guys love this stuff. Today we're going to be talking with Mitch Ryan, who had just come from Monty Walsh with Lee Marvin to join the cast as a guest star on High Chaparral. If you like content like this, make sure you subscribe and please support us on Patreon. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Rob.
I know that you did a lot of these Westerns, but coming up in New York, doing plays and everything, one of the first shows to shoot so much on location was Naked City, and I noticed you did about 5 of those.
Naked City, Brennan, thing.
Good shows.
N.Y.P.D, which was there with Jack Warden, which was
sure
way earlier than the one that, well, they called it N.Y.P.D Blue out here.
Well, I remember N.Y.P.D, Jack Warden, Frank Converse, and Robert Hooks, I think, was in there.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Did a couple of those. The Naked Cities were really fun, too, because those old guys were great, funny guys. And they did incredible stuff on location around town and up streets and down alleys and everywhere, they'd shoot.
Yeah, that sure made them look different than all of the detective and cop shows that were filmed out here in LA.
Oh, yeah.
They were gritty.
Well, the economics finally took over, and everybody left New York and came out here because it was cheaper.
I noticed that Dustin Hoffman was in an episode that you were in on Naked City.
Yeah, I forget what we did, but my favorite was me and Mel Torme and, who's the guy that just died? The really funny comedian, actor. Who was that?
Carl Reiner.
No.
Well, he just died. He's a funny guy.
Yeah, he is a funny guy. He was also the commentator in the dog show thing. Where
Fred Willard.
The three of us played 3 gangsters, if you can imagine, who were hired by Glennis Johns. This is the kind of shows they did in those days.
Well, how great. I mean, Fred was a close friend of mine, and he actually came to our lunches, and we taped his comedy Western.
He was great. He is one of the funniest guys I think I've ever met. I mean,
very dry and fast.
We couldn't hardly get through a take without breaking up. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Burt Leonard was the producer of that.
Burt Leonard, yeah. I forget who directed this one. We're talking 60 years ago.
Oh, yes. Well, that must have been a great experience, though, learning about
for a young kid like I was then, and it was great. And, have all this all these real fabulous pros around, and Jack Warden was a great help on that show that he did. And the 2 old guys, Harry Belliver, and they were a great help, too. They were really marvelous fun.
Good shows. I'm going to try to find that one with you and Fred. And
yeah.
Now, another Western that you did was created by the creator of Bonanza and High Chaparral, David Dorport, called The CHISHOLMS.
Oh, yeah. With Bob Preston.
That had begun as a miniseries.
Yeah.
And with Robert Preston, and the ratings must have been very big, so they spun it off into a series, and you were part of that series, and then they killed off Robert Preston.
Preston, yeah. He said, I got to get out of here. Rosemary Harris was in that. She was.
Yes. Ben Murphy from later Alias Smith and Jones, too.
A whole bunch of those brothers were there. I forget their name.
Ben Piazza.
Yeah. They started in Illinois, if you can believe it. And as Preston said, we took a lot longer than the original settlers did to get out west. So they go west, shoot a few shots, then keep going, It was amazing. And I picked them up in the middle of Iowa somewhere or something.
Way out west.
Yeah. I was, way out west. As the wagon, the Ward Bond part. I said that actually, a lady in the coffee shop asked me somewhere in Iowa or someplace, and what do you play, young fella? And I said, I'm the Wagon Master. I'm your Ward Bond. And she looked at me with a great face and said, no one could replace Ward Bond. I said, you're absolutely right, my dear.
Yes. Not really a Western, but set in America, book one of North and South. You played the father of Patrick Swayze, who was just a brand new star at the time.
Civil War movie, big series, mini-series. They used to have mini-series, they called them, and they did 8 shows or something. I think, yeah.
Yeah, Robert Mitchum was in that, and Hal Holbrook played Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. And Gene Simmons was my wife. Boy, that was
nice.
Quite a thing. She was a great lady. Patrick was, I didn't have a whole lot to do with him because he ran off to war. There was a whole bunch of young actors in it that were really marvelous, Mm-hmm. And that was fun to shoot because you get all dressed up, being a Southern gentleman, owning slaves and all that. But you get to wear these great wardrobes. It was an interesting script, too. It was about the reconciliation of a Northern boy and a Southern boy and the awakening of what the horror of slavery and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. The miniseries were, like you said, they're very, very big at the time.
Yeah. Also, they remember the movies of the week, as we call them, the disease of the week or the crime of the week or something.
Yeah. Well, that's all of the networks were running those, and it was basically just a new way to present anthology shows because they were in a 90-minute time period.
Each one of them did 15 or 20 movies a year, and they did them in 15 days or 18 days.
Right.
I must have done 3 or 4 a year for 4 or 5 years there.
Yeah.
I did a whole slew of them.
A lot of TV shows spun off from those TV movies. They were backdoor pilots, Kung Fu, Night Stalker, a lot of different ones.
Yeah, sure.
Another Western series that ran for 3 years was Young Riders, and you played a part in an episode of Young Riders, had a great cast in that. Josh Brolin was one of the leads, Anthony Zerbe.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that show?
Well, that was down in, they used some of the Monty Walsh sets.
Really?
They were still up. And they used the town, actually. And it was great fun. A lot of fun to do because it had been a couple of years since I'd done a Western by that time. And it was nice to be back in the smell of the cowboys.
Yes, yes. Growing up, did you watch Westerns, Western movies at the time?
Oh, yeah.
Who were some of your favorites?
Well, John Wayne, those great John Ford movies were fantastic. I remember, I watched them quite a bit. The Gunfighter with Gregory Peck, and you remember that one?
And Red River with John Wayne and Montgomery Clift.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And The Searchers wasn't until later, but the Ford Apache and
Rio Grande and
Rio Grande. Yeah.
She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. Those are all great films.
Yeah, fabulous.
Did you ever meet John Wayne?
Yeah, I met him down in Tucson at my wife at the time's mother was married to the guy who owned Old Tucson.
Huh.
Sheldon was his name. They were having a poker game.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get in the game, but I watched her while John Wayne bullied everybody.
How did he bully everybody?
Well, he says, what do you got? Well, that's not enough. Things like that.
I wonder if that's how he won at chess also.
Yeah, maybe. He seemed like a very marvelous guy, but there's only one like him.
Oh, I know. And everybody who met him just speaks so highly of him, too.
There isn't anybody who has had the stature that he had, especially in Westerns. And in other ones like that Irish thing he did for Ford was great.
Oh, The Quiet Man?
And a couple of war pictures he did were beautiful.
I read that John Wayne sent Clint Eastwood a letter condemning High Plains Drifter because he hated it so much.
Really?
Yes. Clint was playing such an amoral character, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Times changed, though.
Well, that's a little living in the past, but that's okay, John.
A film that was directed by Richard Donner, who had done a lot of the TV Westerns. Lethal Weapon turned into just a monster hit. You were the bad guy in that, the general.
Yeah, the general.
Yeah,
that's the baddest of the bad, that part, yeah. But what's interesting is that they had a hard time making a script the way they wanted it. And they were making everybody, all the big shots at Warner Brothers, terrified. Because they spent an unheard of, ridiculous $25 million, which is like peanuts. But they were still screaming, it's not going to make a dime. These two guys don't pull anybody in. And blah, 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 blah. I made like $265 million in the first 2 months or so. And then they 4 sequels.
Oh, I know. Richard Donner had complete carte blanche after that. I bet they left him alone. Warner Brothers left him alone.
They did.
And your henchman in that, Gary Busey.
Oh, God.
What was he like?
Oh, Gary is great. He was clean and sober, which is unusual for some of us old boys. But he was marvelous. His work ethic was very good, strong, and he was very good at it. He was excellent.
He sure was.
General was a great part. I mean, it was really one of the classic villains.
And you tried to set his arm on fire, though.
Oh, yeah.
But then you blew up real good in a car, though, at the end.
Yeah, boom. That was shooting that last scene where they had the car up, all turned over, the dust everywhere, and put me inside. There was a little shot of me trying to reach the hand grenade before it blew up or something. Mm-hmm. And I said, when are we going to finish this? I can't breathe. Oh, just a minute. We'll get it. And took him about 20 minutes or something to get the FA.
What was Mel Gibson like to work with?
Oh, well, he was marvelous. He was like a kid. Mm-hmm. In those days, he brought his trampoline with him, and he bounced up and down on it, and he wanted to stay in shape. And he had a real grip on that part. I mean, he loved that maniac kind of stuff that they had him doing. And the young writer from the Midwest somewhere was sort of gaga. He didn't know what the hell was going on. Forget his name. He did very well after that.
The writer, Shane Black?
Yeah.
Yep.
And he was he'd just been there, you know, 10 days when they started shooting or something.
It really was. I heard that the script was even more violent than it ended up, and it was pretty violent for the time.
Well, they had to tone it down a little bit. And then they, you know how writers and directors and producers, they said, we're going to fix this script. And the writer sort of started shaking.
What a great stunt crew they must have had on that film, too.
Oh, wow. Marvelous. Marvelous.
How did that role come about? How were you cast in that?
Well, Marion Doherty, who was this wonderful casting director who I knew from New York, said there's a great part of this movie. I don't care for the script much, but what do you care, Mitch? I said, no, I don't care. So go and talk to Dick Donner. So I went in and I talked to him, and I think I read a couple of lines. He said, that's fine, that's good. We'll be in touch with your agent. You're in, that's perfect. Great, Mitch. So it was no deal at all. So that was what it was. It was very simple. Just work out the money was the only thing. And away we went, and it was all shot in town, so it was great. Fun to do. It was.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good scenes and powerful stuff, and
it's a Christmas movie too.
Yeah, yes. Speaking of Christmas movies, I did one of those melodramas for television called The Christmas Coal Mine Disaster.
Were you in that?
Yeah.
Was that Carl Malden?
Oh, I did a series with Carl, or a mini-series about that soldier who murdered his wife and his family. It was a big deal, and they were trying to, he got acquitted, and they were trying to follow after him to see if they could get him. And something. Anyway, I had a couple of scenes, one long scene with Carl Malden, which was really incredible because what an extraordinary actor he is.
Oh, he is. I believe that was Fatal Vision.
Fatal Vision. You are great. You are great, Rob. You are great.
A lucky guess, I think. But Carl Malden was wonderful. I remember we gave him a golden boot one time too, which he did some great westerns.
Steve's book.
Yes, he's in the book. And I don't know if you've ever noticed, but we have DirecTV, and on DirecTV, if you click on a name, it'll tell you what other films of theirs that are up. And if you click on, it says Carl Malden, you click on Carl Malden, and it's Richard Hurd's picture.
Oh my God.
Still, after all these years, it's still Richard Hurd.
Yeah. Well, I used to run into Carl Malden and the Actors Studio in New York years, way back when they were before they shot Waterfront and some of those early movies.
How did you decide to become an actor?
When I got out of the Navy, my sister was in a play at the University of Louisville. And so she prevailed upon me one night to go see a play, which turned out to be a very theatrical play called Dark of the Moon. I don't know whether you know that play.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
And it's about a witch boy and a Barbary Allen, and it's got songs, and it's all kind of mysterious and fun, and very, very theatrical. So I was just taken aback by all that, you know. And so she took me backstage to meet the director with nothing in my mind about anything. And the first thing he says was, "Are you an actor? Can you act? Can you talk?" And we need young men in these plays. And I said, no, I don't know. He said, "Well, come by and see me tomorrow. We'll talk about it." So he put me in a play.
Wow. Who was the director?
His name was Doug Ramey. He was the local guy who had been in New York and friend of Warren Oates. Warren was also an old friend of mine from before the theater. And he and Doug Ramey were friends. And Warren was still there. He hadn't gone to New York yet. And he didn't stay in New York very long. He went.
You know, people don't realize that Warren Oates did so much live work in New York before he came west.
Yes, yeah. And when he came, it's a shame about him dying so young, because he was such a marvelous actor.
Yes, he was so distinct. I know, you know, of course, Peckinpah loved working with him, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't, but Peckinpah.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Peckinpah?
I never met him, and I just was so sorry for that. And I would have been glad to be in one of his movies.
Yes. Oh, you would have been great in his movie.
Did that Western over in Spain with a lot of his boys, LQ and LQ Jones and Strother Martin and a few others.
Well, that's a great group, too. I mean, Peckinpah's stock company, L.Q. Jones and Strother Martin, too. I know when Warren came out here, he suddenly, because they were making so many Westerns when he got here, which was earlier than when you came, he got put in all of these things. Peckinpah used him on a Rifleman episode, and Warren, it seemed like he never stopped working.
No, he didn't. Incredible.
Did you hang out with him much out here with Warren?
Oh, yeah, I saw him off and on, and I did a picture with him with Leslie Caron, a private detective.
I remember that. Sure, it was a film noir.
Yeah.
The Chandler.
Chandler was the name of it, yeah.
Wow, okay.
And I had a nice little part in that. I'm one of the bad guys.
Of course.
Of course. One of the baddest. Yeah, I ever played a good guy.
Oh, you have. I tell you, one of the best good guys you've played, the long-running sitcom, DAHRMA and GREG. You played the clueless father.
I was a good guy if I was drinking.
Then you were upset and mad playing bad guys when you stopped. How did the DAHRMA and GREG part come about?
Well, it was kind of a fluke because Chuck Lorre, who was producer and co-writer, was looking for somebody of my type, who was like, not to be fooled with guy, as he put it, who could do comedy. And he didn't want a silly jerk or, a namby-pamby or anything like that. So I don't know how he got around to it, but he had me in. They had me in, and I read, and they liked it a lot, and so they offered it to me, which was nice. I was very surprised because I didn't think why would they want me for this part?
But you were perfect for it, and it was like
it turns out it was a perfect thing.
And it was live in front of an audience too, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Every Friday night.
Gosh, I wish I'd been going to some of those.
I mean, everything he touches turns to gold. I mean, the guy's amazing. He has like one of the biggest contracts I've ever heard about. You can't even pick it up with Warner Brothers.
Tell me about Steve Carver and being in the book, what that experience was like with Steve.
Oh, boy, that was such a shock about Steve.
Yes, it really was.
Well, he was a mighty fine lad. He called me up one day, and I sort of knew him off and on, or his name or something, you know. And we talked a while. He said, I'm doing a book about the unsung heroes of the West, guys who play all these parts and aren't the leading leaders. And I'd like to put you in it if you would. And I said, did you get Wilford Brimley? And he didn't.
No, I know. And he was working on a sequel, hoping to do a sequel to bring up the number from, I think, 72 were in the book to 100. And so there were a lot of people like Wilfred and Robert Fuller and Alex Cord and Will Hutchins, all these people. And it's a shame that that's not going to happen now.
That's not going to happen. Somebody should do it, but they won't, probably.
Boy.
Nobody loved it like he did.
No, it took him 20-something years to do it.
And what a great setup he had there with all the props and everything and wardrobe. And it was just great.
Yeah, in the worst section of town there is. I mean, behind those barbed wire gates.
It took me forever to find it. I couldn't find the place for an hour.
Get in fast before anybody sees you're here. You know? Lock the door. It was a great spot for him to do all that. What a setup, but just scary to be there. Well, Mitch, I don't think I have any other questions. I think I've got enough for 2 or 3 more interviews that I'll cut together.
Well, great, fabulous, and thank you so much for thinking of me and putting me on. It's great to be here. I love your studio.
My house.